What's happening, fishing friends? Welcome to another episode. Today I've got a fun review of one of my favorite rods of 2022, the Kistler Chromium. Now the good thing is with all the Black Friday sales, you can get this thing for like half off right now, but we'll get into that more here in just a little bit. So as of course with all my reviews, I'll give you an up close look at the rod. I'll discuss some of the pros and cons of this rod after using it and even show you some on the water footage from using this over the last year. So enough yapping, let's take a closer look. Starting with the back here. So these have an interesting kind of grip section. So the back, you know, the far butt is EVA, but they've got this carbon fiber wrap with like some sort of coating or treatment that makes this very grippy. It's like even when you kind of get like slimy or wet, it's a good grippy surface. It's not like just a regular, I don't even know how to explain it. It almost feels like a thin, rubbery, almost like that Flex Seal stuff, if you ever sprayed any of that. Almost like that kind of like rubbery texture to it. So in hand, it's very grippy, feels really good. I like how it's just slightly contoured right there. Fits in hand very well. Now going up, it is a nice, good reel seat. Take the reel off just to show you. It is dirty, needs to be clean, but it is a Fuji reel seat. It's the, I really don't care about this. You know, some of them will say like the skeleton or through. I usually finger my line, anything where I need to feel, you know, the bite. I've always got my line under the, or my finger under the line here, so I don't care a ton about that. Really the rod itself, you know, how sensitive it is and feeling that line, I think are more important. But moving up, you can see with the reel nut there, it does have the EVA soft touch. I don't know if they have a name for this, but they should, because more companies should take note of this and put this on there. I don't know how much work it takes to do that, but for anybody that is like me and likes to put their finger at the front of the reel as they're reeling and working, you know, working a bait, or like if they're feeling a Texas rig or jig with the line there, that makes such a difference instead of having like the hard plastic with like the lines there where your finger rubs across it. This is just 1,000 times more comfortable. So I like that that Kistler has done that. One of my favorite features on their rod. As you move up, you've got the hook holder. I have still not found one single hook holder that I'm like, this is the best all around. This one's pretty good because you can always bend the back of it up if you wanted to have like a Texas rig or jig where you could take it on or off. I got the smaller, this is a shorter. I'll take you through the specs here in a second, but a shorter rod that I've used for treble hook things, so I've just hooked it here. Speaking of the specifications, you can see I got the scope series. So this is a 6'10" light, medium, heavy, rated for lures up to 5/8 ounce, and it's a fast. Now the thing with a light, medium, heavy, if you're wondering what the heck is that, it's between a medium and a medium heavy. So it's like a light, medium heavy rod, like a softer medium heavy rod, and I don't mean in the action of it. It's still a very true fast action, so when you bend that tip, it only bends, you know, maybe a third of the way down. But when you're holding on to this rod and you actually put a flexion in it, it's not as much work to actually get a bend in it as you would think with like a normal medium heavy, but it's still got more backbone than a medium. So that's what I mean by this. It's kind of like in between a medium and medium heavy. Now you can see for the accents and wrapping, I absolutely love it. Y'all know I am boring when it comes to colors. It's like a cool silver thread wrap on there with like black and silver. That's it on the whole rod. Give you a better look there. Nice clean wraps on it, and these are handmade down in Texas, so it's cool to see that they are hand making these, putting the time into it. You can go on YouTube and check out their shop and the people doing you know, the actual making and stuff. I think that's pretty neat to see. Now the actual blank itself, you can see it's still wrapped. Listen, they don't put any glue or anything like weird stuff like that over it. It's the actual blank, and this is what they call the KC8 Plus, 100% Japanese Toray carbon extreme high modulus. It rolls right off the tongue. But what that means is it's a super light, good quality blank. I have liked this a lot, and these average, I'm gonna keep them honest here. I grabbed my scale. It says on the website they average 3 ounces. That's very close, 3.2 ounces. So as far as the guides though, they're a Keegan stainless guide with Colite ring inserts. Again, rolls right off the tongue. But good guides. The only thing I would say is they are a little bit smaller. They're not super micro. You can see here compared to a rod with actual micro guides on it. They are a smaller guide, but I wouldn't say super micro, if that makes any sense. They're a smaller guide. I haven't had issues with them using straight fluoro or like a monofilament on them, but if you're somebody who likes to go braid to a leader, that could be an issue. But definitely not as much of a problem as I would say as like actual super micro guides, if again that makes any sense. Now the thing I like about this one, they call it the Scope Series. It's really for me been a topwater and a jerkbait rod, and I do like it because the handle here, it's only 9 inches, so it's a smaller, you know, back handle section. So when I'm working this, I'm not hitting myself in the bicep, you know, the side. A good short rod. So overall, I have really liked this. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons and look at this rod in action on the water. Oh my gosh. So the first night I took this rod out, I was using it for topwater. As you can see, it didn't take long before I was able to land my first fish. I really liked that it had that shorter butt on it. It was nice and easy to walk the bait, and it was a heavy enough rod where I could use some of the bigger lures. This night I was throwing the Excite Baits Heckler, as you can see here. Topwater lure, it's similar to like the Reaction Innovations Vixen, but a larger topwater walking bait. And again, the fish were feeding, so the fish were roaming around looking for bait fish. I casted some of these fish blowing up and landed another one. As you can see, the rod has a good bend in it, so it's not a super soft like crankbait rod, so I can work the lure. I can pop it and walk that bait back and forth, but as soon as I hook into that fish with the treble hook bait, I want some bend in it. I had to get up into the jungle to land this fish. Same thing for a jerkbait. So one of the other days I was using it was for a jerkbait, and you can see as I pop it, it's not super flimsy. It doesn't keep bouncing after I stop. It completely stops the action of the rod, the bouncing, and lets that bait just completely die. Very important for a jerkbait. You don't want that rod or the line to move. You want that jerkbait to just stop in place. And again, going back to the bend of the rods, this is a light, medium, heavy. I was using this for larger walking baits. Larger, like 110 size jerk baits. I was using the Berkeley Stunner here, which is a 112, I think. But you can see as I pop it, that rod stops, pull into it, and it's got enough bend into it where I'm not losing these fish. Bends down about a third of the way, which is a fast action rod, but is soft enough to, again, between medium and a medium heavy, to be able to put a bend in that rod, keep that fish hooked and pinned as I bring it in. Overall, I really liked it out on the water testing it and using it with these baits. Okay, so what are some of the pros and cons of this rod after using it for the year? Well, for me, the number one thing is getting this thing in hand. It locks in, and to me, that's a big thing when you're looking at a rod. You want something that you're going to use a lot. It has to be comfortable. I know Randy Randizzle always talks about he likes to get his hands on the rods and reels. He likes to make sure they're comfortable. He likes to use it and kind of get a feel for it before he buys. And I completely understand that. I take a little bit more risk than him in that way. I'll buy stuff online. If I don't like it, I can always return it. But this one, man, this one was a home run. In hand, I put my pinky behind the trigger. I like the reel trigger that it's longer, that it sticks out down here. I hate like a short, my dad is complete opposite. He would rather have rods with no reel trigger right here, like this just cut off. He hates them. Some people like the real short ones. I like to make sure that it sticks out below my pinky. I feel like I've just got a good positive grip on it. So in hand, that's the first thing, is it melds and meshes. And I know I've talked about this before, but on the Kistler rods, they have EVA foam. They're on that reel nut. I don't know why more companies don't do that. Your finger sits there, like if I'm fingering the line or working the rod, my finger sits there just like that, so I can move it back and forth. Feels extremely good in hand. I can fish this all day without a problem. Now, kind of the second part of that, and I know this is gonna sound weird, but fishability feel. So you've got feel in hand, and I'm not talking about using it all. I'm just saying picking up the rod and doing this feels awesome in hand. Now, fishability feel, I think, like I said before, these range, or most of them weigh like around 3.5 ounces, depending on how big and what type of rod you get, but very light. That was the first thing that I noticed when I got my hands up. When I got my hands on these, is they were very light. Now you can have a good light rod, but if you don't have enough backbone, a good feel when you actually hook a fish, again, doesn't matter how light it is. It could be half an ounce, and if it just feels too limber, doesn't feel good when you're actually catching the fish, there's no use to having the rod. And this one felt very good, like I said before, using it for topwater walking baits, using it for jerk baits. This is the smaller scope rod, so it's a shorter 610 rod, so perfect for anything where I'm working the rod tip down. It's not overly soft. Again, it's a light, medium, heavy, so it's in between a medium and a medium heavy, right in between there. Not overly soft. I mean, it doesn't bend clear down to the middle like a cranking stick. It's a decently soft rod, but still enough to where you can work the bait. I don't want a super flimsy crankbait rod when I'm trying to work a topwater or a jerkbait. I want that to pop, pop, and then that rod, pretty much stop. So that bait's stopping and dying there when I'm working it. So feel in hand and fishability in hand, feel in hand, that lightness, the way the rod moves and works, everything felt great that way. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is I can fish it all day, and it felt good when I actually fished it. Now, getting into the cons, there's really only two things. The first thing, of course, has to be price, right? 350 bucks for this rod, new, not on sale, would be out of my budget. Now, luckily, when I got mine, they had a good sale at 40-something% off. They're doing the same thing now for Black Friday. So I think they have it marked 50 bucks off plus 40% off of that. So you can get the rod for like 175 bucks. And again, that might be out of your price range. That is fine. I use stuff from $50 rods up to something like this. So right now, I'll leave the link below. You know, let them know Debo sent you. They're super nice folks. I've talked to them before. Check out that link. And there's other ones besides this that are 40% off now. So if you've been looking at a Kistler rod, Black Friday sales like they do now, where you don't have to buy a bunch of them, just 40% off is the time to get it. So number 2 is maybe the guide size. Now for me, it doesn't matter for what I was doing. However, if you like to run like braid to a leader, these aren't the super micro guides, but they are a little bit smaller guides. I personally like these. I run straight fluorocarbon on it, I'm sorry, I should say mono or fluorocarbon. To work, you know, like I said, my topwater baits are a jerk bait, and I had 0 issues with it. The guides themselves are high quality, super nice guides, but I know that's one thing I usually like to talk about because some people don't like, you know, the kind of smaller guide size, and they're not super micro. They're kind of a small guide, I guess I would say. So that's maybe the only drawback that I can see with it. Otherwise, super solid rod in hand. There's no clicking, creaking, anything like that, you know, when you shake it. Once you tighten that reel nut down, the reel didn't move. I didn't have any issues thinking, you know, this thing feels like it's going to fall apart or break or anything. Overall, super good construction, but really those would be my only 2 critiques. All right, fishing friends, so final thoughts on the rods. I've absolutely loved it. It would be out of my price range if I couldn't get it on sale like it is now. That's a little bit too much for me to spend regularly, but I try to never pay full price for anything. I always look for sales, you know, discounts, getting it used, something like that where you can dip your hands into some of this more expensive gear at less of a price. Today's subscribed fishing friend is Mr. Patrick Boyle. Patrick, thank you for always watching. He has been an OG, longtime follower. Unfortunately, froze his strawberries off recently fishing. But people like you, Patrick, and everybody else who continues to watch and support me, the folks that I've had supporting me for a long time does not go unnoticed. So I appreciate you all. Again, I would not be here if it wasn't for all of you. So again, I left a link below to the rod. Everybody out there, I thank you so much. It is late. I need to edit. That's it. I feel like I'm rambling. It's late. I need to go to bed. Thank you for watching, and until next time.